It's Friday, July 2nd, 2021, and this is the Washington Times front page. Thanks for joining us. I'm George Gerbo. We start with a pair of rulings from the Supreme Court. First, the court upheld Arizona's voting restrictions in a case brought by the Democratic National Committee that could make it harder to challenge other voting measures nationwide. Legal affairs reporter Alex Sawyer reports the 6-3 ruling along ideological lines bolstered the state's right to implement its own election requirements. Justice Samuel Alito, in writing for the majority, said Arizona's laws generally make it very easy to vote and that there's a legitimate state interest in preventing fraud during an election. The DNC aimed to eliminate Arizona's requirement that voters who cast ballots in person on Election Day do so at assigned precincts. Conservatives labeled it as a major win for election integrity efforts, while liberals argued it discriminated against minority voters. The court also ruled that the state of California ran afoul of the First Amendment by ordering charities to disclose the names and addresses of their donors. Alex reports the case originated when a group of charities challenged a law passed by California's Democratic-led legislature that required them to disclose their list of donors with the state. Though the form was held by the state and not publicly available, the group said it was a violation of the First Amendment and the state system was vulnerable to hacking. In another 6-3 ruling, Chief Justice John Roberts wrote that the disclosure requirement creates an unnecessary risk of chilling in violation of the First Amendment. Justice Sonia Sotomayor disagreed, writing in a dissent that the charities should be required to show that the law infringed on their First Amendment rights before initiating a challenge. The Congressional Budget Office says the U.S. economy will roar to life for the rest of this year and remain supercharged through 2022, though the analysts also expect a sharp rise in inflation for several months. Stephen Dinan reports Americans who saved up during the pandemic are looking to spend, creating strong demand for goods and services. Inventories aren't ready to handle that demand right now, thus the spike in inflation. CBO analysts say supply and demand will even out quickly, and inflation pressures will dissipate by the end of the year. The CBO projects gross domestic product will rise 7.4% in real terms year to year in 2021, and will continue at 3.1% growth in 2022. The office also expects the unemployment rate will fall to 4.6% at the end of this year, and be back to pre-pandemic levels at some point next year. A reminder that you can find all these stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page. Don't have access yet? Visit WashingtonTimes.com/George and get 25% off your annual subscription. Washington football team owner Dan Snyder has been fined $10 million and will lose control of the day-to-day operations of his team for several months as part of a penalty the NFL handed down after a review of sexual harassment claims against the organization. Sports reporters Matt Paris and Andy Koska report Snyder's wife Tanya will take over the daily responsibilities of the club after she was named co-CEO on Tuesday. The league took action after D.C.-based attorney Beth Wilkinson wrapped up an investigation that began last summer after claims were made by 40 women against the organization. Wilkinson's probe of the charges, made by women who said they were sexually harassed while working for the franchise, unearthed a working environment in which bullying and intimidation were the norm. NFL officials said that Wilkinson didn't make any specific recommendations regarding punishment to Commissioner Roger Goodell, who chose not to suspend Snyder. The league said Snyder's decision to take a step back was voluntary and will last at least through the NFL owners' meetings in the fall. After a public government report acknowledging UFOs, the Pentagon, intelligence agencies, and other key players will now embark on a major overhaul of how documented encounters with unidentified craft are tracked, organized, and analyzed. Pentagon correspondent Ben Wolfgang reports specialists say exactly how federal officials approach that mission and how much money and human resources Congress will allocate towards it will make all the difference. The appetite for more information on UFOs has reached new heights nationwide. Longtime researchers say the next few months and years will be crucial in determining whether the shroud of secrecy has truly been lifted. And finally, Bill Gertz takes a look at where China stands geopolitically as the country marks the 100th anniversary of the Chinese Communist Party's founding. Chinese President Xi Jinping said in a congratulatory speech this week that the party was leading the country to national rejuvenation and that the system the party forged was responsible for China's economic success. Others, including a former high-ranking party official, used the anniversary to publish a dissent, saying the Chinese Communist Party system is not just authoritarian, but also neo-totalitarian in its control of the country. Find all today's front page stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page or on the Washington Times app, and subscribe for free to the Front Page podcast. Just search Washington Times on your favorite podcast platforms. The Front Page will be off for the Independence Day weekend and be back on Tuesday, July 6th. For the Washington Times, I'm George Gerbo.